Well, Happy New Year, Green Lane. Oh, it's kind of a little loud there, isn't it? Whoa. Hope the year has kicked off well. As we, I want you to imagine if you could write a letter to a younger version of yourself. So here you are, version of yourself in 3rd of January 2016, and you're able to write a letter to a younger version of you. Maybe a year ago, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 20, 50 years ago. What would you write? I would imagine some of you would write something about, investing wisely. Don't get into credit card debt. Some of you might talk about, when the Apple share price in 1997 gets at its lowest point, buy as many as you can because one day it'll get up to $110 per share. Some of you might talk about friendships, about choosing the right friends, staying away from Charlie and Co. because you're going to get into lots of messes with him and his friends. You might talk about spending more time with friends and people you love. In my case, you might say, make sure when you meet that beautiful girl with the bright red lipstick called Robin that you propose to her and you marry her and you keep her because she's, worth keeping. It might be something about home life. Make sure you get home, for dinner rather than stay in the office. Make sure you, tell your spouse you love him or her regularly. Schedule date nights, schedule more adventures to have as a family. It might be something about soul care. It might be something about work. It might be something about studying well. But effectively, the types of things you write are probably connected to the types of resolutions some of you have already made or in the process of making. Or instinctively, if you don't even get to the resolution stage, you instinctively know there are some areas in your life that need some changes. Those are likely the types of things you would write to dear younger me. Because we all have goals, don't we? And if we don't, we instinctively know we need to change in some particular areas of our life, whether they're work or home or family or health or our soul or whatever it is, that there's some progress that we need to make in our life. So if this is us right here, I'll go back to this one, because that's like, whoa, where did that come from? When I think about, I'm into this health kick at the moment. So when I was thinking about, what I would like to see happen this year, this is probably it. That at the end of 2016, this is what I would look like. Something a lot more like Brian, I guess. I have a long way to go. But what's your goal? As you think about health or soul care, we all have those different goals, right? Effectively, right now, we're here, 3rd of January 2016, and we want to get there. We want to be somebody kind of different spouse, not change our spouse, but be somebody different, just to clarify. Be a better parent in our work, whatever that is, we have these goals, right? And I want to talk today about how do we get from here to there. And the book of Proverbs is where we're going to help us in that journey, because the book of Proverbs actually has a lot to say about getting from here to there, not getting stuck in the here where we are, but actually making progress in these healthy goals that we should have in life. Now, if you've never been to Proverbs, it's actually quite a different type of book. Most of the Bible is written in this narrative genre, these different stories. It might be different letters, like the Apostle Paul wrote to churches, or it might be sermons like the book of Isaiah. There are all these different things you read from start to finish, right? Proverbs is one of those places you come and there's particular verses you read, and they're these Twitter-sized sayings filled with wisdom. Effectively, Solomon is like this sage, and he's pulled all this advice, all this wisdom from surrounding countries and neighborhoods and people he's seen, and he said, this is good advice for life. And then the Spirit of God, by inspiration of the Spirit, has pulled this into the canon of Scripture, which says to me, God actually wants us to live life well. He actually cares about the practicalities of life, not just about our soul, but how we work, how we set goals, how we live, how we make friends, how we do all of these different things. God actually wants us to do life well, to develop this art of living life wisely and effectively. So Proverbs actually has a lot to say about getting from here to there. Now, instinctively, you know what there looks like. there's some area of your life that probably by the inspiration of the Spirit of God kind of elbowing you in something, there's an area in your life probably coming through in the resolution some of you are making or forming, some areas you need to change. That's what we're going to look at today. How do we get from here to there? How do we live in such a way that we don't get stuck where we are and fail to make progress to get to where we need to be? Now, today I'm going to contrast two different creatures that Proverbs looks at. The first creature is going to let us know how we don't do that. If we follow the advice of the first creature, we're going to get stuck. 3rd of January 2016 will be the same person as we will be 31st of December 2016, and probably 5, 10, 20 years from now, it will still be the same. We don't want to follow the way of this particular creature. And then later, we're going to see another creature that we're meant to emulate. There's principles, lessons from this other little creature that we want to follow. The first creature is the slug. This inert, horrid, little slimy creature. We're not meant to emulate this creature. Now, Proverbs doesn't actually talk about the slug, but it does have a character it mentions not just a few times called the sluggard. The slug-like person. Lazy, inert, slow off the mark, stuck. A person who hardly ever moves. They just sit and blob for most of the day. Listen to the way the sage, the writer of Proverbs, talks about the sluggard. The sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He's too lazy to bring it up to his mouth. It's like he gets halfway, gets the hand down, but then can't be bothered bringing that 30 centimeters up to actually eat something. He would rather just dunk his hand into the mince pie than actually pick up the mince pie and eat it. It's complete laziness. Or this one here. As a door turns on its hinges, as a sluggard turns on his bed. It's just like this. There's a bit of movement going on, but you're just stuck, moving back and forth and back, but not making any progress in life. And Proverbs is full of these funny, sarcastic sayings about this slug-like person. They're inert. They're lazy. They never move. And the reason the sage writes these things is he's wanting to make mockery of the sluggard so that we don't become like this person, to kind of motivate us to be somebody quite different. So in all these verses, there's mockery because he wants us to move. Now, if you're like me, probably when you read verses like this, you kind of smile, you kind of laugh, but you never think they apply to you. Because if anything, you're less like a slug and probably more like a headless chicken. Running around, just full of activity, kind of busy. Maybe more like the, Energizer Bunny, on steroids. You're way too busy and you probably feel like you need to be heard, but some thoughts about slowing down and resting and some things like that. And perhaps you think, well, this doesn't apply to you, but man, I hope my spouse is listening right now. Though it would be an unwise thing to turn and nod to him or her right now. Or you kind of think, I hope my kids are tuned in because they need to hear this. But me, I'm pretty busy. I'm active. I'm not a slug-like person. I'm not a sluggard. And you probably do pretty well in 8 or 9 out of 10 areas of your life. But I think most of us have this trait that I call selected sluggardliness. That, again, 8 or 9 areas of our life, we're doing pretty well. But there's 1 or 2 areas of our life where there is this slug within. We never get to make progress in that particular area. You may be recognized as one of the brightest lights in your firm. Making progress, making a superb job, working hard at that. But your spouse and your kids never get the time that they want or need. Again, you would like to be getting a 9 or 10 as a spouse or as a parent, but you're kind of like the slug. You've got distracted by these other things you're doing really well in, but actually life at home, you're not doing so well. D-. Or you might be really into, a university environment with friends around you, the concept of knowledge, but you struggle to take your studies seriously. So you skip all these classes. You're always late getting your work in if it ever gets in at all. Or you earn good money and you also love spending good money. And you've never got around to, budgeting for generosity. you'd like to get around to it, but just never done it. Or you have lots of time to spend with friends, but you never seem to have time to spend even like 10 minutes, just set aside time with God, praying, reading His Word. You keep the house spotless. The garden's well groomed, well landscaped, but you never seem to get around to inviting people around to your house and actually being hospitable. You do a great job loving your family, but you do a lousy job looking after your body, which is the temple of the Holy Spirit. See, you and I might do really well in 8 or 9 areas of our life, but there's probably 1 or 2 areas that we have this condition I would call selective sluggardness. We're really active in these other areas, but in this 1 or 2 areas of our life, we tend to have the slug with it. And Proverbs has something to say to you and me about whatever that issue is. And I want you to grab that issue and apply these things we talk about today to that particular issue. It's likely to do with the types of resolutions you're making, has to do something with that issue, or the types of resolutions you know you should make has to do with something with that particular issue. So let's look at what we can learn negatively from the slug who gets stuck where he is, never makes progress or very slow progress, inert, sluggish. The first thing we see, there's 3 of them. The first negative thing we see about the slug as we learn about the slippery slope towards sluggardliness is, I'll get to it later. All of you have said this at some point, right? Or you've at least thought it, now, not a good time, but tomorrow, yeah, good. Or I'll get to it later. Proverbs talks about this. It says, a little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. It's almost like one of those verses there could be in speech bubbles. It's like the sluggard is saying, well, I'll get to it later. I just feel like a bit of a nap right now. I'm just a bit too tired. And so you neglect that area of your life that needs some hard work, some focus. You procrastinate. You put off till tomorrow what needs to be done today. Effectively, procrastinators are like escape artists. When something needs to be done, something that they dread or simply just don't want to do now because there's something better, they find a way to escape. They busy themselves. It might be on TV on demand. It might be in their work. It might be in their hobby. It's just something else but this, because even though I know it needs to be done, I'll just put that off. I'll do it later. So we wait till tomorrow. And then we wait till next week. We wait till next month. And then it becomes another resolution that gets passed, another resolution. And it just goes year by year by year. And you fully intend to do something about your health. You fully intend to actually develop good friends. You fully intend to make progress in your work and your studies. You fully intend to grow in your relationship with God. You have every intention of a vibrant, loving marriage, of being a good parent with kids who respect you. I've never met anyone who doesn't want to be more generous, more hospitable, more friendly, more caring, but I've seen people, so many people, get stuck with all the best intentions simply because they think I'll get to it later. So fill in the blank. I really want to be a person of good marriage, hospitable, generosity, growing walk with God, but just not now. You see, I'm in my final year at university. It's going to be this busy year. I'll have more time on my hands later. And we mean it. 5 years go by. I fully intend to blank, but later. We've just got married, and between a new job and home, there's no time really for anything else. But I'm sure there will be in a few months. I'll get to it later. But months become years. Work gets longer and harder. I fully intend to blank, but I'll finish it after this work project is over. Or after the holidays and everything is settled down and the kids are back at school. I fully intend to blank. Always later. It's easy to say later. The best intentions are not the same, though, as doing something. We say later. We never say no. and the well-intentioned follower of Jesus who genuinely wanted to have a vibrant marriage, kids who respect them, a healthy walk with God, connecting to their neighborhood around them, generous with their time and resources, having a healthy body and soul, awakens after decades have passed, only then to realize that later actually means no. See, procrastination, I'll get to it later, is the first step down the slippery slope towards selected sluggardliness. There's another step. Not just, I'll get to it later, but excuses, excuses, excuses. And it makes sense, doesn't it? You say, I'll get to it later so many times, your conscience suddenly kicks in to say, you should really be doing this now. But because you don't want to feel bad, you keep making excuses. And you put the blame onto anybody or anything else but you. So Proverbs talks about this time and time and time again. Excuses, excuses, excuses that we make. The lazy person claims, there's a lion on the road. Yes, I'm sure there's a lion out there. I love this one because it's just dripping with sarcasm. There is no lion. But you've come up with the worst excuse you can find, and then you feel good about it. I can't go to work because something might happen. A lion might eat me when I get out the house, so I'm just going to stay where I am. It's just the most ridiculous excuse somebody could even come up with. Or we make excuses and we push the blame onto parents or spouse or circumstances or even the weather. I'm under too much pressure at work at the moment. I've got too much on. When that changes, I'll get around to it. She'll understand. It's just the way I was raised. Something came up. I don't have enough information to start. It just doesn't feel the right time to start. I'm too tired. Making excuses is that next step after procrastination down the slippery slope towards selected sluggardliness. There's a third one. You believe your own press reports. You see, when you keep saying, I'll get to it later, and then you keep making excuses, you eventually believe your own press reports about how great you are in that particular area that you're actually hopeless in. Proverbs, again, talks about this person. The sluggard is wise in his own eyes. Then 7 men, I can't even read this. The writing's bad. The sluggard who is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who answer discreetly. Eugene Peterson in the Message translation says, dreamers fantasize their self-importance. They think they're smarter than whole university faculties. You procrastinate for long enough, you begin to make excuses, and sooner or later you actually believe your own press reports. You become immune to the criticism of others, and you actually believe you're good at these things in front of you. You actually think you're a good parent when you're hardly ever present. You actually think you have a vibrant, healthy marriage when actually in reality things are just holding on. You think you're in good shape physically when the cholesterol test would say something quite different. You think your soul is healthy before God when, there's no spiritual fruit to show it. You talk the walk, but you certainly don't walk the talk. You believe your own bad press reports. See, this is an order here, isn't it? That we see from the slug. I'll get to it later. Excuses, and then you believe your own press reports. The consequences of following the slug-like behavior. First of all, you hurt others. Proverbs says, as vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is a sluggard to those who send him. You know what it's like. You're at a cafe and somebody pulls out a cigarette at the table next to you and it's just like, this in your eyes, it's just irritant. That's what Proverbs is saying. You become one of those people. People don't want to be around you. And sure, you're doing well in most areas of your life, but in that particular area that you're going to score pretty lousy, and even though you might not score yourself as lousy, you know what it is. But you're going to hurt others in that particular area. At best, you'll just be an irritant. People won't want to be around you, and you'll just be continually frustrated because of that particular area you're not focusing in and making progress in. At worst, it could cost you your marriage, your kids, your health, your life, because you're not stepping in on things that you know you need to step in on. It doesn't just hurt you, though. It doesn't just hurt others, it hurts you. Proverbs says, I went past the field of the sluggard, past the vineyard of the man who lacks judgment. Thorns had come up everywhere. The ground was covered with weeds, and the stone wall was in ruins. I applied my heart to what I observed, and I learned a lesson from what I saw. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, I'll do it later. Poverty will come on you like a bandit, a scarcity like an armed man. See, the wise man wanders into this field owned by the sluggard and saw with his own eyes the destructive nature of the sluggard's laziness. Field's overgrown, it's covered with weeds, the walls are all destroyed. And this can easily be applied from, a vineyard, from agriculture to just any area in our life. You get lazy with your work and you may find unemployment or missing out on that contract or missing out on making progress or not really enjoying the sense of satisfaction. You get lazy with your marriage and you lose intimacy, if not the marriage itself. You get lazy with your body and you find ill health develops, maybe early death. You get lazy with your kids and you end up growing distant from them or them from you. You get lazy in your walk with God and you discover the spiritual poverty. Weeds just develop and you don't step in proactively to deal with those things, and eventually it's just a shambles. Statistics from a study on 2013 procrastination, apparently people do these types of studies, they found 40% of people have experienced financial loss due to procrastination. 1 out of 5 people, procrastination have been so bad that it's jeopardized their jobs, their credit, their relationships, and their health. See, weeds grow up. And it doesn't just affect others, it affects you. And so Proverbs says, don't follow the way of the slug. Instead, there's another creature that Proverbs wants you to follow. The sage of Proverbs wants you to bend down, 6'1" or 5'7", and get on your hands and knees and look at this little creature here. The ant. And the activity of the ant. It's very different to the inert, slothful, lazy behavior of the slug who makes very little progress. The ant is very active in what it does. So the sage of Proverbs writes, take a lesson from the ants, you lazy bones. Learn from their ways and become wise. Though they've no prince or governor or ruler to make them work, they labor hard all summer gathering food for the winter. There's a lesson or two we learn when we take time to look at the activity of the ant. The first is that the time is now. Not later, but now. See, ants gather food for the winter, and they do so in summer. While we're all out, having summer picnics and enjoying ourselves, ants are hard at work. They don't stop and enjoy the picnic. While we're munching away on our burger rings, ants are there taking a grain of sugar, one by one. And they'll be back for a piece of that potato chip that you've dropped very shortly. Ants take the initiative now. Now, they could be distracted just like you and I can be. I mean, that picnic looks good. They would love to enjoy that potato chip, that piece of that burger ring right now. But they know that winter is coming. And food in winter is pretty scarce. It's hard for an ant, but now is the time, summertime. You gather all the food you can now in order to prepare for the hard times of winter. The ant works hard today for the challenges it's going to face tomorrow. You've probably heard it before, but it takes 15 years to become an overnight success. It's true in sports world. I think about people like Lydia Cole, the number 1 ranked female golfer. She began golfing when she was just 5, putting a lot of hours in order to become an overnight success. In fact, one study I was reading this week by John Hayes, he's a cognitive psychology professor, he writes that every single masterpiece played in symphonies today only came about after 10 years of hard work by professional composers. Nobody produced anything less than 10 years in the musical career. It took a long time for that overnight success. It's true in sports, it's true in music, it's true in the arts. It all began with people stepping in now, doing the hard work day in, day out, to prepare for something that they wanted to have later. See, some of us have this mushy belief that our future will just one day get better. We're just going to wake up one day and we're going to feel better about ourselves. Or one day our marriage is just going to be vibrant, our kids will just love us. One day we're just going to turn up in the office and everyone in the work environment is just going to think we're fantastic now. It's just all going to happen just one day because something will happen to us, rather than us actually stepping in now to prepare us for the future. See, life does not work that way. It's more like the sluggard, hoping, dreaming that one day things will just change. The ant seizes the initiative now. There's another lesson we learn from the ant. Not just realizing that the time is now, but realizing that we need to take little steps. My staff tease me from time to time because I'm always talking about the need for us to take next steps. We always need to be in this continual improvement in both life and organization and church and everything we're doing, always looking, well, what's the next step we need to take? Otherwise, we'll plateau. Otherwise, we'll get stuck. Otherwise, we'll just stay where we are. You see, effectively, progress is made up of lots of little steps in the same direction over a long period of time that takes you a long way. Say it again, lots of little steps in the same direction over a long period of time that will take you a long way. You see, I want you to think about that area of selected sluggardliness that you're facing right now. I want you to agree to do something now rather than later. And I want you to think about what's one little step you can take towards that area you need to grow in. If it's your walk with God, perhaps it begins with getting up 10 minutes early. Might even take chapter from Proverbs every day. There's 31 chapters right over a month. Good timing. Start small. Remember small steps. Set up a time. Set up a place. Get started. Or it might be enriching your marriage. Why not to get together with your spouse and think about date nights or some retreat you could go on or just some adventure, something you could do together to invest in the quality of your marriage. Talk about it. It might be proactive to talk about faith as a family. A couple of months back, I gave you some New Zealand statistics that 85% of church-going families in New Zealand don't currently have any faith conversations at home. So apart from maybe giving grace before a meal, there's no talking about Jesus, there's no praying together, there's no reading the Bible together, no talking about what God is doing in your life. 85% of people don't do that, Christian families. What does it look like to change that? Because it's not just going to happen one day. You need to take a step, begin a little step now. And so out in our Faith at Home Center, just out on the foyer, we have even these My 120-Day Plans. You might want to pick up one of these to actually think through some things you could do in your marriage and parenting, as a grandparent, as a single person, to think about the quality of life at home. That faith would be part of things in your home life. A whole bunch of activities out that you might want to pick up for your grandkids, for you, just to step into. Different ideas to help you nurture faith at home. Might be that you're wanting to be a generous person. Again, start in a small step. For Robin and myself, a few years back, first step for us was setting up a bank account and started to direct money into a particular bank account, just so when we could see a need, we could respond to that need, so we could train our hearts to be generous. And then from there, we were able to set up an AP to give to church and to give to other people and organizations that we value, and throwing things in, training ourselves to be generous. What does that little step look like for you? It might be your health, that you need to do something with your health, your body. That little step might just be a walk or a run or joining a gym or something to actually look after the temple of the Holy Spirit. It might be taking a next step like baptism. We saw Jason and Jasmine take this pretty terrific step today. It might be you're in a similar space. You might not actually know God right now and you're coming to different groups, you've been coming here for a while, but you keep putting off this decision to actually cross the line of faith and actually give yourself over to Jesus. And today might actually be that day where you just say, actually, I need some help. This is what I want to do. And you take the opportunity at the end of the service to talk to somebody about that. There's a whole lot of different groups coming up, in February, Alpha, all those type of things. You can sign up for one of those, but just talk to someone today. Pray with someone. Talk to somebody. But what does it look like to actually get baptized? Follow the example of people like Jason and Jasmine. See, God put the book of Proverbs here because He actually values the practical aspect of life. It's not just about the quality of our soul. It's not just some theological thing. It's about the practicalities of life. Marriage, parenting, grandparenting, friendships, work, home, recreation, our health, all these different things. What does it look like to get from here to there? If you follow the way of the slug, the consequences don't look good for others or for you. But if you follow the way of the ant, if you look at the activity of the ant and think about doing something now, the time is now, and taking these little steps, you actually enjoy some consequences, some positive returns on that. Proverbs says the way of the sluggard is blocked with thorns, but the path of the upright is a highway. Now, that highway, he's not talking about some motorway congested in Auckland, big time. He's talking about, it's almost like you're in the car and you've got the window down and the air's coming or the wind is blowing through your hair and you're just enjoying the ride and there's no blockage, no barrier in front of you. It's just this enjoyable way of life and this rhythm with God. Proverbs talks about, do you see a man skilled in his work? He will serve before kings. He will serve before obscure men. The way of you step into this and you can go a long way is this principle. It's not a promise, but a healthy principle of life. Again, the sluggard craves and gets nothing, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. These things you would love to see happen in your life, to be more hospitable and more friendly and more generous and a person that makes a difference and all these different things, that the desires of your life can actually be achieved. Jesus models all of this to us, doesn't He? We had gotten ourselves into quite a mess. When it came to our walk with God, we were sluggish. We had turned our backs on God. We were in just a mess, and thorns and weeds were growing up all around us, is the picture the Bible gives. But Jesus took the initiative. He was proactive. He stepped into our world. He lived and He died and He rose again so that we can have life with Him, but an effective and enjoyable life with Him and with each other. He didn't just step back and say, I told you so, when we got into this mess. He did what was necessary for us, and He gives us books like Proverbs that we can read and listen to, that we can change and get from here to there and not get stuck here. I'd like to give you a moment to pray, to talk to God about the area of your life where there might be the selected sluggardliness. God already knows about it anyway, but talk to Him about it. Talk to Him about the steps that you would like to take. Ask that His Spirit would fill you and empower you to make those little steps to get from here to there. Just give you a moment to talk to God in the quietness of this moment. So, Father, here we are. We're a people who easily get stuck in that area or two in our lives. We fail to make progress. We are genuinely aware of what needs to change, but we just get stuck. We put off tomorrow what we know we need to do today. So, Spirit of God, we invite you to come. Take hold of these faith-prompted dreams we have. Help us to step in the areas that we need to. Father, thank you that you invite us to experience relationship with you and also an effective and enjoyable life. help us to seize that and help us to follow the advice of the sage and do what we need to do. In Jesus' name.